So nearby Nisha, this video is not sponsored by, but I'm mentioning again, this card game here, made by a friend of the channel, links below. Now tea. George Orwell is the Wikipedia of authors, in that he's often cited by people who clearly aren't interested in doing any original research. Highly prolific and always keen to cause a fuss, perhaps one of the most controversial things George Orwell ever wrote is a lesser-known piece about how to make a proper cup of tea. And Nisha, how do you personally take your tea? We both sat here with a mug of tea right now.
Well, if I make it at home,
yes,
I usually have 1 sugar in it, milk.
Unfortunately, we don't have sugar in the office. I'm very sorry. I'm sorry there can be no sugar in the office.
It's probably better that I don't have sugar in it, because when I have it at home, I do have a sugar in, milk.
And I myself am not too fussy, and when I get asked how do you like your tea, to respond, wet and warm. Because however it's going to be made, it's probably going to be all right. But there have been a couple of occasions where I've had a cup of tea and just gone, do you know that thing where you go,
yeah,
that look, and then you have to do the British thing, be polite and drink it. It was the first time my girlfriend made me a tea. My girlfriend being American and watches these videos, so sorry honey, but I'm going to tell this story. She made me a cup of tea that was like, it was somehow white, but also bitter.
What?
So it wasn't brewed long enough, but also was too strong, and I don't know how she did it. But she made the mistake of filling it all the way to the top, and then there was not enough space for milk.
Oh, okay.
So she put like the tiniest little bit of milk in the top, so you could still see through it. So you can still see through the tea, and you can see the bottom of your mug. And then served me that, and it's like, yeah, it's great. Thanks. Then I just did that thing that you do when you're being polite, and you wait for it to cool down, just drink it like a big milky shot.
So making tea can be quite controversial.
It can in the UK, yes, and I have been in many a household where arguments have taken place over the correct way to make tea, and it is one of the biggest topics of argument in British households throughout the UK, alongside the other classic long-standing argument in households, which is which way to hang the toilet paper. And there have been a lot of surveys done on how often people argue about this subject, and the answer is quite a lot. And I think every British person has had an argument at one point or another when they come across someone who makes tea the wrong way.
Yeah, because it's usually when you put the milk in.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
That's one of the biggest sticking points. Then there's others like, how long do you brew the tea? What tea do you use?
I personally am not fussed.
That's it, I don't give a fuck. But some people do, and they give a huge fuck. And I don't think anything sums up how contentious the art of making tea is, more than a news story about an American influencer who literally caused a minor international incident by making tea wrong. For a moment, just guess what this girl did to make people so pissed off when making tea. Like, what would be the biggest tea making sin you could commit?
Is it the one where they heated the water up by putting it in the microwave?
Yes, it's that one. She heats the water in a microwave.
So fill our mug with water, put it in the microwave, set it for a minute, pour the milk in.
When I say, folks at home, this caused a minor international incident, I am not kidding. This story went super viral in the UK, and everybody from the average British man and woman on the street to members of parliament and foreign representatives got pissed off about this.
Yeah, I remember that now. It's so weird. Like, do they not have a kettle?
That's the thing, that Americans generally don't have kettles. They warm up their water either on the hob or using a microwave.
Oh, God, on the hob, yeah.
The kettle is an almost like uniquely British thing. And I don't think anything sums up more than the phenomenon of TV pickup, which is the observable occurrence of the power grid getting slammed whenever a soap opera finishes or there's like a football match halftime.
Yep, everyone makes a cup of tea.
Yep, everyone makes a cup. And the thing is though, so many people do that at once, and with the kettle being just a particularly like power hungry device, 1 million kettles being turned on at once is something the British power grid actually has to plan for. And there's a great documentary out there showing one of the people who has to work at the power grid watching Eastenders. And he's watching it, and the moment you see the dun, 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 and he runs over, he starts pressing all these buttons.
Oh my God.
Because he has to, because if he doesn't, there's going to be no power, and the grid will collapse under the weight of the demand.
Which means?
It's all yours, mate. Just the idea of British people, they are so addicted to tea that the power grid is at risk of failing almost every single day. Just the amount of people who demand it at the same time.
Probably like one of my favourite facts I've just learned.
It's great. But let's bring it back to that lady who made tea using a microwave. I'm not kidding when I say that caused a minor international incident, because not only did, like, you know, the average man on the street get pissed off, and like TV personalities. I remember there's a great video by Phillip Schofield where like a TV host, where he's like, oh, here's how you make a cup of tea, and he makes it in the microwave and throws it into his garden.
All right, so this went higher than just like celebrities.
Yeah, the British Foreign Office in Washington, their representative went as far as to contact different members of all three branches of the British Armed Forces to ask them how to make a cup of tea, to show it to Americans.
Oh my God.
And then they get a member of the Army, a member of the Navy, and a member of the Air Force to show you how to make a cup of tea. And that is, it's a metaphorical declaration of war. But before we move on as well, can we just please put in that clip of Gordon Ramsay yeeting a microwave out of a window? Just because it's so funny.
Yes! Later, Chef Mike. Yeah!
Also, I'm getting really fucking sweaty. I put this on thinking, oh, I look all classy for this one about British things like fucking, oh. Right, to bring it back to George Orwell. His better known work, 1984 and Animal Farm, they're highly controversial in themselves, but the one he wrote about tea, I think it's funnier that it's controversial because it's such just an innocuous subject at first glance.
Yeah, because it's something you wouldn't think would be controversial.
But it
it is.
It's like the argument of what do you call a bread cake? And I know, right, by saying that, some piss off, it's not a fucking bread cake.
Don't.
Exactly.
I have this argument with Adam all the time.
I've had it multiple times as well.
So what is this article that George Orwell wrote about tea?
Well, it's simply titled A Nice Cup of Tea. And in it, Orwell outlines the 11 essential tips for making the perfect cup of tea. And somewhat ironically, given the author's more famous work, he's very just particular about the way tea should be made. And bordering on just like, if you don't do it the way that I do, you are a fucking moron.
Say if he's got 11 tips, to me that seems like too many. Like too many things to do while making a tea. It's just like put tea bag in, whatever, sugar, hot water, milk, done, stir, whatever.
Well, George Orwell would not like you because, for a start, you don't put sugar in your tea.
I like it sweet.
Exactly, that's the thing. But he says, and it's fine, I don't personally have sugar in my tea anymore. I did when I was younger, but I don't anymore. But I don't give a fuck if you want sugar in your tea, but he did, and that's what makes it funny. Because, he wrote, Orwellian, the term, was, comes from him of, just oppressive governments, enforcing their own ideals upon people. And that's what he was doing in regards to tea, just on a really, he's been Orwellian on a super minor scale. And just for no particular reason, as I mentioned that, here's a picture of George Orwell with a Hitler moustache. He used to have one. He used to have one, but he had it before it was unpopular.
Okay, so what other tips and advice does George mention in this article?
One that stuck out to me is that when you're making a pot of tea, so you don't just make a cup of tea, you make a pot of tea. It's to use all of the tea you have available. And I believe the amount he would personally use was about 6 heaped teaspoons of loose leaf tea in one pot. And the recommended amount is 1 heaped teaspoon. So he advised using 6 times more tea than almost every other person in the country would use. And he advised this during a time of rationing.
Great.
Yeah, so his advice was use literally all of the tea you have to make 1 super strong cup of tea, because in his words, 1 strong cup of tea is better than 5 weak cups. But he was telling people this during a time of rationing. So he's basically saying, do you know that one moment of just levity and relaxation you have when you have that 1 cup of tea? Fuck that, you're not doing it right. You are enjoying tea wrong. He was literally telling people, you are enjoying tea wrong. Also, don't put cream in it, don't put sugar in it, don't put milk in it. And one of the things that gets me, remember, written at a time of rationing is, if you are going to put milk in your tea, skim off the cream. And I'm sure the people during rationing were really happy to get the advice of, do you know that one nice bit of milk you get? That little bit of luxury you get in your daily ration of milk? Get rid of that shit, it's not nice. And it's really funny because, the stuff he wrote later, that's most famous. Orwellian, the term comes from him. And he was like that with tea. It's if only there was a word to describe it. There is, I know it's irony. But someone's gonna correct me and I'm gonna feel like, no, I know what I was saying. I was trying to be funny. Nisha, you mentioned earlier that there is one very controversial aspect of tea making.
Yeah, when to put the milk in.
When to put the milk in, yes. And George Orwell, I think he agreed with the consensus that most people have, which is you put the milk in after you've made your tea. In his words, doing that allows you to gauge how much milk you want to put into your tea, if you are going to put milk in it at all. And that's one of the few bits of advice on his list of advice for making tea, where he actually gives you a choice of what to do. And one of the other bits of advice, I forgot to mention this one is, you have to put the water in the pot the instant it comes to the boil, because the 4 or 5 seconds it takes you to walk across the room, you lose like optimum tea brewing water temperature. And then he advises you to, I shit you not, grab the pot and shake it around. And there's one thing I'd like to end on, Nisha, because after hearing about just Orwell's almost pornographic description of the correct way to make a cup of tea, and like, you know, the numerous faux pas people make whilst making their tea, you know, putting sugar in it, like not pouring off the cream, not using the right tea, not using the right pot, not using tea from the right area, not using enough tea, using too little tea. Would you like to just hear about how he drank his tea after it was brewed?
Yes, please.
Well, we drink it out of very specific cups. That's another thing. He was also an arsehole about what cup you use. But if he spilled any in his saucer, he'd loudly slurp it from it.
Oh.
Yeah, so the guy who insisted you don't know how to drink tea properly to the entire British population would loudly slurp his tea out of his saucer, aka one of the rudest possible things you can do when drinking tea. The literal rudest thing possible to do, he would do. Fuck you, George Orwell. Nah, he's alright.